from West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the following is provided by the West Virginia Department of Education and West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Hey! Hey everyone, it's Education Station!
Hi, and welcome back to Education Station. I'm your host, Alex Milanese. Education Station is a show where we invite teachers from all across West Virginia to submit videos of themselves teaching their favorite lessons. In today's episode, we've got 3 exciting lessons about personal health, English, and reading. Now, the older you get, the more you'll realize how important it is to get a good night's sleep. So our first lesson today comes from Miss Sinisi, who is going to discuss how to achieve quality sleep. Let's check it out.
Today we're going to look at our 5th video in the series on health and wellness. It's divided into 2 small parts, and it's on how to achieve quality sleep. This is the first part, and we're going to look on ways to improve your sleep, and in the second part we'll look on why it's important to have quality sleep. So if we follow our sleep habits, good sleep habits, that would make the difference between restlessness, like you're tossing and turning all night long, and restful sleep. So researchers have identified a variety of practices and habits, and they call those sleep hygiene. Just like you have dental hygiene or mental hygiene, these are sleep hygiene. And they can maximize the hours you spend sleeping, even when your sleep is affected by insomnia, jet lag, and a lot of people who work different shifts have problems with sleep. So there are 12 simple tips to improve your sleep. Number 1 is you should avoid alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and other chemicals that would interfere with your sleep. You all know that if you drink a cup of coffee right before you go to bed, or an energy drink, that it might be difficult to fall asleep because caffeine is a stimulant. And that means that it stimulates your nervous system to give you more energy. That's why they use it in those kind of drinks. And it's, in coffee it's natural, but in energy drinks they put it in there. So about 4 to 6 hours before you go to sleep, you want to stop drinking caffeine, and that way it gives it time to move through your body so that you can have a more restful sleep. And then although alcohol may help to bring on sleep, some people drink and then fall asleep, later on after you've been asleep for a while, it can act as a stimulant, and then it starts to interfere with how many times you're awake, the number of awakenings, and will decrease the quality of sleep that you have. So you want to stay away from those things before bedtime. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is what you want to do is to turn your bedroom into a sleep-inducing environment, right? There are some things you can do. You need a quiet, dark, cool environment to help promote sleep. So a lot of people recommend darkening shades or darkening blinds so that not a lot of light comes into your bedroom to keep you awake at night. You want to keep the temperatures cool, usually between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If it gets too hot in your bedroom, sometimes you can't sleep, or if it's too cold, sometimes you can't sleep. You want to keep computers, TVs, and work materials out of the bedroom because those stimulate your brain. If you watch TV and then try to fall asleep, sometimes your mind is still working through processing the information that you saw on the TV, and it's difficult for you to fall asleep. Number 3 is we want to have a soothing pre-sleep routine. We want to ease the time from you're awake to sleep. You don't want to just be up, jumping around, and then go right to bed and expect to fall asleep. So you want to do some relaxing activities an hour or so before you go to bed. These are some examples. You could take a bath or a hot shower. Those 2 things would help you. What happens is it increases your body temperature. And when your body temperature increases, it promotes drowsiness. So that would help you go to sleep. Some people like to read a book. That would help them go to sleep. Some other people want to watch something relaxing on TV. I wouldn't recommend, like a violent TV show. And then some of them will practice relaxation techniques, some deep breathing exercises or some just meditation or something like that, that would help to ease you in from a wakefulness to sleepfulness. You want to go to sleep when you're truly tired. If you are not asleep and you've lain in bed for 20 minutes, you should get up. And then if you get up and you go to another room and to practice maybe some of these things, some relaxation techniques to try to induce sleep. You don't want to go to bed when you're not tired and expect to fall asleep because it usually will not work. That's number 4. Number 5, you don't want to be a nighttime clock watcher. A lot of people, if you wake up in the middle of the night, will stare at the clock and it's midnight. I have to wake up in 5 hours. It's 1:15. I have to wake up in 3 hours and 45 minutes. Kind of like that. So staring at the clock either when you're trying to fall asleep or when you wake in the middle of the night makes you stressful because you start to worry, oh, am I going to sleep till the clock goes off, or how much sleep am I going to get? Am I going to be able to function tomorrow? Some of those things. So you don't want to induce that type of stress, and then it's going to be more difficult for you to fall asleep. So you might want to turn your clock facing away from you. If you have like a Fitbit watch or something that tracks your sleep, put it on sleep mode so that every time you turn over, the light doesn't come on and alert you to the fact. Or if you get an email in the middle of the night on your phone, I turn my phone over and turn my watch off. That way it won't wake you up. Number 6, we want to use light to our advantage. Natural light keeps your internal clock on a healthy sleep-wake cycle. Those are called circadian rhythms, and your body naturally goes between sleepfulness and wakefulness, and you want to stay on that kind of a schedule. And then therefore, if you get out into the sun and you get your vitamin D and your brain sets to its serotonin levels, it will help you be able to fall asleep better when it's dark. We want to keep our internal clock with a consistent sleep schedule. Go to bed around the same time every night, wake up about the same time every morning, because that gives you some time to set that internal clock. And if we stick to this routine and we don't stay up late on Sunday night watching Sunday Night Football or whatever it is that you like to do, that will prevent those Monday morning sleep hangover where you're kind of out of it on a Monday morning because you stayed up too late, maybe all weekend long or maybe just on Sunday night. Number 8 is to nap early or not at all. If you have a late day nap, say it's after 5 o'clock and you come home from work and you sleep for half hour, 45 minutes and get up and then try to go back to sleep at 10 o'clock, it might be more difficult. So we want to try to take our naps before 5 p.m. if possible. And that way, once it gets to bedtime, then you're truly tired and you can go to sleep. That's number 8. Number 9, we want to lighten up on your evening meals. Don't come home at 8 at 9 o'clock at night and eat a whole 3-course dinner, 4-course dinner. Because first of all that your body's going to try to digest, and that's going to cause some different things to happen physiologically in your body. And it also, if you feel that you're tired, you might want to snack on foods that won't disturb your sleep, like dairy or carbohydrates. A lot of people used to talk about warm milk before bedtime would help you to sleep. That's the dairy, and that's some of the chemicals that are in the dairy that would help you to be able to sleep. We want to balance our fluid intake. You don't want to drink a whole lot of fluid and then go to bed, because what happens? Then you're up all night long running back and forth to the bathroom, and that disturbs your sleep cycle. So a couple hours before you go to bed, you might want to tailor back, even if it's water, whatever it is, back on those kind of things. Exercise early. Exercise can help you fall asleep faster and help you sleep more soundly, which is a good thing, but we don't want to do it too close to bedtime, because once you get that exercise going, you secrete cortisol. And cortisol activates our alerting mechanism in our brain, but it also activates stress. So you have to be careful about that. So you want to try to finish your exercise about 3 hours before you go to bed, okay? Some people could exercise and go right to sleep, but for the typical person, it's not a good idea. The most important tip is number 12, and that's the follow through. It's all nice to label 10 or 11 things that you can do to try to sleep, but if you're not going to enact those into your daily routine and schedule, then they won't help you. So you want to follow through. You want to stick to the tips. And that way your chances of achieving restful sleep will improve. And then each day, if you stick with these, it will get better and better, and then maybe you can overcome insomnia or some of those things that bother your sleep patterns.
Thanks, Miss Sinisi. Now, for our next segment, Miss Adkins is going to share a helpful lesson about high-frequency words. Let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Christy Adkins. I teach kindergarten. I'm going to show you some of the routines we use to practice our high-frequency words. Those are words we'll see a lot when we read, and we want those to pop in our brain. They're going to be sight words when we're finished. So when we look at them, we don't have to sound them out. They just pop into our brain. And we practice our letter names every day, and then we practice our letter sounds. So this is the routine we use to practice those in our classroom. When I put my finger in front of the word, think of the word in your head. Don't say the word until I slide my hand under the word. My turn. So this time you're going to watch and I'll show you how to do it. Word, what, word, said. Your turn to say the words. Word, what, word, said, word, was. If we would forget a word, let's pretend they said was, they sounded it out. I will say, my turn, word, was. Your turn, word, was. Spell was, W-A-S, word, was. They're going to back up to make sure that we get that extra practice with that word we missed. Word, what, word, said, word, was, word, green, word, blue, word, was, word, yellow, word, said, word, what, word, blue, word, was, word, green, word, what, word, said, word, yellow, word, blue. Good job. And if they had problems with one word, we can go back and we could say word, was. If they miss it again, my turn, I'll tell them what it is. Your turn, spell the word, say the word. We want as much practice with those words as we can get. The next thing we do is we practice letter names. When I put my finger under the letter, think of the name in your head. Don't say the letter name until I tap under the letter. My turn. Name, E, name, X. I'll wait just a minute just to give all the kids time to think of it, but not too much time that it takes forever and they lose interest. Your turn. Name, E, name, X, name, U, name, J, name, U, name, H, name, U, name, X, name, F, name, U, name, L, name, U, name, G, name, X, name, U, name, X. That section was letter names. We'll mix them up. That way, I have some letters I think they'll have a problem with. Letter E, letter U, X is our new letter we're working on. So those are pretty hard for them. Next, we'll do lowercase letters for the sounds. I like to just do the lowercase letters so they are not confused which letter we're going to use, because sometimes this letter looks like an I or an L. So we always use lowercase letters so they'll always know. So it's kind of the same thing. I will put my finger under the letter. You'll think of the sound that letter makes. You're going to, when I touch under the letter, continue to make the sound until I lift my finger. It's my turn. Sound. Sound. Your turn to say the sounds. Sound. 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 G. Sound. Sound. L. Sound. D. Sound. Sound. J. Sound. X. Sound. If they would happen to make a mistake, the same routine. Your turn, my turn, sound. Your turn, sound. Then we back up 2 so we can practice that one again. Sound. J. Sound. X. Sound. So that's how we practice our sight words, our letter names, and our letter sounds every day. Another thing we do is I practice phonemic awareness. We segment the words or break them apart. So I will ask the students, tell me all the sounds you hear in a word. For instance, if I said the word cat, the students would say k, a, t. So we're breaking those up so they can hear all those sounds, and that helps them writing the sounds later on. So we'll practice now. If they make a mistake, my turn, I'll fix it, and then their turn, I'll make them say it too. Let's try the first one. Tell me all the sounds in sat. S, a, t. Hide. H, I, d. Tone. T, o, n. Wag. W, a, g. Shut. Sh, t. Toss. T, s. Last. S, t. You'll notice that one had 4 sounds, so we want to make sure we hear both of those sounds at the end separately. The last word was. W, z. That's our morning routine with that. And then I will blend some words with the students. Move this out of the way. All right. So now we're going to use all of those skills we just practiced to blend and read some words. I will write one letter at a time. I will touch under the letter, and I ask the students to tell me sound, s, sound. Then we blend those 2 sounds. Sound, blend. Sun, word, sun. We want them to gradually increase their blending so that they can read that word. This helps them sound out words on their own. Here's another one. Sound, j. Sound, blend, j. Sound, d. Blend, jud. Word, Judd. Sound, sound, p. Blend, up. Word, up. Sound, p. Sound, l. Blend, pull. Sound, blend, pla. Sound, blend, plan. Word, plan. Sound, sound, blend, fa. Sound. I'm going to make a mistake here to show you how to fix it. Sound. My turn, sound. Your turn, sound. Let's start over. If they make a mistake on the sound, I want to restart the whole word to get that out of their brain so they can get the right sounds in their brain. Sound. Sound. Blend. Fa. Sound, blend, fun. Word, fun. The last word, sound, sound, s. Blend, us. Word, us. To practice the words again, we can go back and just say word, sun, word, Judd, word, up, word, plan, word, fun word, us. We want to give them time to think of those words, probably a little slower than I just did. I hope that helps you learn more about sounding out the words in our routines in kindergarten. It is really important that you keep working while you're at home.
Thanks, Miss Adkins. Okay, so our final stop today is with Miss Williams, who has a fun reading lesson about ecosystems. Let's check it out.
My name is Whitley Williams from the Careers in Education program at Fayette Institute of Technology. And I am going to share a fun way to teach students about the ecosystem and what plants need in order to grow. This is a book about mice who take care of a pumpkin. And while I'm reading, I want you to try to remember all the things the mice do to help the pumpkin grow. So this book is called The Biggest Pumpkin Ever by Stephen Kroll. Once there were two mice who fell in love with the same pumpkin. Clayton the house mouse noticed it one day in the vegetable garden. It was still little and green, but Clayton thought he could make it grow really big. It might even get big enough to win the grand prize at the town pumpkin contest. Desmond, the field mouse, discovered the pumpkin the same day. He thought that if he helped it grow, it could become one of the biggest jack-o'-lanterns in the neighborhood. That afternoon, Clayton watered the pumpkin. He also mixed up some fertilizer and manure and water. He spread the mixture around the pumpkin to make it grow larger. That very same night, Desmond went into the garden. He watered the pumpkin too. He also spread some manure mixed with water around it. The next day, Clayton watered and fertilized the pumpkin again. The next night, Desmond did the same, and the pumpkin began to grow. By the end of the month, the pumpkin was so large, Clayton couldn't believe his eyes. "My goodness," said Clayton's mother, "and it's not even full grown." Clayton shrugged. "All I do is water it," he said. Clayton's mother whispered in his ear, "If you want the pumpkin to grow bigger faster," she said, "you should use sugar water." That night, Desmond brought his brother, Morris, to see the pumpkin. Morris knew everything there was to know about growing things. "That's some pumpkin," he said. Desmond shrugged. "All I do is water it." Morris whispered in his ear, "You should try using sugar water," he said. The next day, Clayton dug a small hole beside the pumpkin vine. In the hole, he placed a bowl full of sugar water. He cut into the vine a few inches from the pumpkin. In the cut, he put one end of the piece of candle wick. Then he put the other end in the bowl of sugar water. That night, on the other side of the pumpkin, Desmond did exactly the same thing. Within a week, the pumpkin was twice the size it had been. Within 2 weeks, it was absolutely enormous. Clayton was amazed. He ran down the road and peeked into his friend Jimmy's pumpkin patch. The pumpkin Jimmy was growing for the contest looked much smaller. Clayton scratched his head. "I have an amazing pumpkin," he said out loud, "and I think I'm going to win the contest." That night, Desmond and his brother Morris spent a long time looking at the pumpkin. "How do you think it got that big?" Desmond asked. Morris shrugged. "A little luck, a little skill, it's going to make some jack-o'-lantern," said Desmond. "It sure is," said Morris. A week later, Clayton noticed the pumpkin was bigger than the family car. During the day, everyone he knew came by to admire it. And at night, all the field mice gathered round to do the same. By now, summer was almost over. In a week, the pumpkin would be full grown and start turning yellowish and then orange. A few weeks after that, it would be ripe and ready for the pumpkin contest. Clayton could hardly wait. The pumpkin was growing so fast it would soon be larger than his house. Then, he had a terrible thought. If the pumpkin was so big, how would he get it to the contest? It wouldn't fit in the red wagon. It wouldn't even fit in a truck. Clayton decided to worry about this when the time came. That night, the weather grew colder. Thinking there might be an early frost, Clayton rushed out to the pumpkin with his blanket. One was not enough. Soon he was rushing back and forth, carrying all the blankets from the house. As he worked, he hummed a little song, and as he hummed, he heard someone else singing. He also began to realize that someone else was covering the pumpkin with blankets. Desmond, too, had seen the danger of the early frost. He, too, had brought blankets to the pumpkin, and as he worked, he sang a little song. And as he sang, he began to realize that someone else was working and humming. Clayton stopped humming. He put down his pile of blankets and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. Desmond stopped singing. He put down his blankets and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. The two of them bumped heads and fell down. "You've been feeding the pumpkin," said Clayton. "You've been feeding the pumpkin," said Desmond. "That's why it got so big," said Clayton. "That's why it got so big," said Desmond. They burst out laughing. When everything had been explained, Clayton said, "I know I'll win the contest if I can get the pumpkin to town." Desmond smiled. "I'll help you. Just let me carve the pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween when the contest is over." "It's a deal," said Clayton. "A deal," said Desmond, and they shook on it. The morning of the contest was bright and sunny. Mice were bringing their pumpkins to the town square by truck and car and wagon. Some were rolling them along the ground. Suddenly they all stopped. Over the fields came the biggest pumpkin anyone had ever seen. It was being pulled by 100 field mice on motorcycles. When the pumpkin reached town, it was too big for any of the streets. Clayton had to explain why they couldn't bring it to the square. The mayor understood at once. He led the crowd to the giant pumpkin and pinned the first prize ribbon on its side. Then everyone danced around it. "Who would have believed this?" said Clayton as he danced. "Who would have believed this?" said Desmond at the same moment. When the celebration was over, the 100 field mice pulled the pumpkin back to the field. The day before Halloween, they carved it into the best jack-o'-lantern ever. And on Halloween night, its wonderful smiling face could be seen glowing for miles around. Now that we are finished, we are going to start drawing a diagram of what the pumpkin needed to grow. The first thing you need is a pumpkin. I'm going to color mine orange. Then, who can remember all the things the pumpkin needed to grow? If you said the sun, you would be correct. If you said fertilizer, you would also be correct. If you said water, you would be correct. The important thing to remember is to make it your own. Make your pumpkin look as big and orange as you want or as small and green as you want. It's your pumpkin. And now you know what a pumpkin needs in order to grow.
Thanks, Miss Williams. All right, well, that wraps up everything for us here today on Education Station. We want to thank everyone who shared their awesome lessons. And we want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Education Station.